Well, hello, everybody, and happy hump day. Happy Women Wednesday. And if you are a Denver Nuggets fan, like my best friend Liv Moods here, it is a phenomenal week. It is the day before the parade eve, championship parade eve, if that's a thing. Liv, I have not spoken to you face to face
I
since
know.
the Denver Nuggets made history. How are you feeling? How is the city of Denver feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. This is a team, it's one of those things where they've been great all year long, but you know how sports are. Regular season, being great in the regular season is awesome, but can you show up on the biggest stage? And they absolutely did. I had Nuggets in 5 for a while, so I was able to cash on that bet actually, and also just have the bragging rights attached to it. So that was really great. But it is really, really cool. And the clip of me talking about them building a dynasty, a lot of people, the conversation right now is it's like, woohoo, congrats, but it's never happening again. And I don't know if I agree with that. I really don't know if I agree with that. This is a core between Gordon, Jokic, Murray. If all things health stay good and we don't have any health issues, you throw MPJ in there once he fixes his shot. I'm just not sure that this is the end for the Nuggets. I don't think this is a one and done. I love what they're doing, and I think they're a powerhouse.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna dive into that in more depth in a second. But first, I mean, you cashed out. How much did you win? Let's dive into that for a second.
We do sprinkles around here. We got to be smart with our money. We just sprinkle. It was $50. It was a $50 bet, so I walked with 150.
Okay.
So
Okay.
not bad. I also bet on MPJ 15 plus points because I saw him get his groove a little bit in game 4. And I was like, okay, I can feel it. He's going to have some moments. So we bet on him 15 plus points. I ended up making close to $400 that night. So we sprinkle around here because if we don't, then we get carried away. But yes, Nuggets in 5, 150 was the bet. So we're feeling all right.
So we're not taking any of our infamous vacations on your winnings. Is that what I'm getting at? Because that doesn't seem like a lot of money.
I can buy us a cocktail and an appetizer for sure.
Barely a plane ticket,
right?
Not even round trip at these rates. But let's dive into this because you spoke about, so adamantly, so passionately about this being a dynasty. I'm on the side of, I think the Denver Nuggets can absolutely do this again. Can they two-peat? I don't know. It's hard to two-peat in the NBA. It's hard to two-peat in sports in general. Will they get back to the finals? Absolutely. Will they win another finals? Absolutely. I think that all roads are going to lead through Denver in some capacity for the next few years in the West. I don't see how that's just asinine take, but a lot of people don't agree with that. One of which being somebody that you work with at the Volume. What's up with that?
Yeah, listen, I'll tell you something I have learned is very, very difficult in this industry is having respect for somebody as a colleague and as a professional in this space doesn't mean you always have to agree with them. And I have noticed here over at the Volume Sports, there have been a lot of takes that I have bit my tongue on or just let them run their mouth. We'll keep the receipts. That's kind of been my mojo lately as this Nuggets team has continued to progress through the postseason. But yes, I have a colleague, Chris Mannix, excellent at what he does, incredible at what he does. But he doesn't really necessarily see this as a dynasty. He's not fully convinced over this Nuggets team. And even worse, he's not fully convinced on Nikola Jokic either. So I have definitely had some beef with Chris as of late.
I know Chris from my Sports Illustrated days, Liv. So trust me, I some of his takes have ruffled me the wrong way as well, ruffled my feathers as well.
Yes. And you know what? I think part of it is we live in an industry or we work in an industry where hot takes are kind of what we do. We find conversations that are going to get people riled up. But when we're teetering on just being dead wrong, that's where you kind of have to step up and say, what is going on? So yeah, this is what Chris had to say about it.
I'd probably feel differently about Jokic if he had gone through Boston or Milwaukee or in a matchup with Joel Embiid in Philadelphia. I think it's a playoff run that elevates him. I don't know if it elevates him to that top tier stratosphere. He answers every question that was ever out there about his ability to succeed in the playoffs. But to get to that next level of superstar, that all-time great level of superstar, I want to see him go up against a team that you consider they're equal or even consider they're better, to beat someone that you're staring down and you're the underdog in that particular series by a sizable amount. In the NBA, you play the team that's in front of you, and they have beaten every team that's been in front of them, most of them pretty badly. If we're talking about where this playoffs pushes Nikola Jokic, it's a level up, but it's not that all-time great level up just yet.
I absolutely hate when people do this because
I agree.
It is so egregiously disrespectful to the path of an NBA championship. Phil Jackson famously said winning a championship is 50% luck and 50% talent. Luck meaning you got to stay healthy. Luck meaning a lot of things have to go in your favor to reach that finish line. And Chris Mannix pulling out those teams in the East. Oh, he didn't have to go through Philly. He didn't have to go through Milwaukee. He didn't have to go through Boston. Okay, let's talk about those teams. Milwaukee was the number 1 seed, lost to the 8th seeded Miami Heat. Boston was the 2nd seed, also lost to the play-in team of the Miami Heat. Philadelphia completely and utterly just collapsed in their series between Joel Embiid not being 100%, James Harden sometimes wanting to be vintage James Harden, and then sometimes not wanting to play basketball. So if we're going to go ahead and talk about these teams, let's talk about them in the way that they actually played. If those teams were so big and bad and, they weren't teams that you could take down easily, and that was the path that Jokic had to take and the Nuggets had to take to prove that they are the true contenders, then how did they lose to the Miami Heat, who weren't even a playoff team? Like, the math's not adding up, Chris. I hear what you're saying. I think you're speaking in terms of legacy, in terms of, yes, Boston notoriously is a championship city. Milwaukee has won a championship. They have, the 2-time MVP in Giannis. Philadelphia on paper is a really good basketball team. They probably should have won their series, but they didn't. And some of those teams were taken down by a team a lot less talented than them. So the facts are the facts, and the fact is, you are wrong, Chris. You are wrong.
That's right. Well, you know what? It's so funny. I go back to TCU. I've had a really cool little year here of sports. My alma mater, TCU, going to the national championship. And it's so funny to see all these Michigan fans, these Alabama fans saying, had we played in the national championship, we would have actually gotten a game. Well, then Michigan don't lose to TCU in the Fiesta Bowl, and Alabama don't have a 2-loss season. It's that simple. So here's the problem. We didn't have a fluke game or a fluke series with this Bucks Miami Heat series, okay? Giannis could hardly make a free throw. He was off. They didn't look like they were a number 1 seeded team. And then you've got, like you said, the big collapse of the 76ers. Then you've got Boston, who has an incredible comeback. But guess what? You live and die by the 3, and you can't make one in a do or die game. That's a problem. So here's my issue with what Chris said. Those teams, whether you believe or not that they would have taken down the Nuggets, the simple fact of the matter is they didn't show up when they needed to. And this isn't a 1-game situation. They had 7 games. They had 4 wins, 4 losses, if you will, to try to save their season, and they couldn't. So I think that so much of what we see in the postseason is also just that grit, that competitive nature, the ability to show up when it matters most. Those things matter, especially in this league. So you also, shout out Chris, I know we just gave you a hard time, but sometimes that happens. You also have a coworker that had some very strong opinions about this Nuggets team.
Yeah, Antoine Walker, former Miami Heat player, also former Boston Celtic, doesn't believe in the dynasty that is incoming from the Denver Nuggets. And before we throw to that clip, much to your point, it's interesting that when things go against what people predict, all of a sudden it wasn't a difficult path, right? And what I mean by that is, I remember when Miami was rocking and rolling and knocking off these top seeds, everybody said, oh, they can go all the way. This is the team to beat. Denver may have an issue with this team. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. This series might go 7. So I don't understand how in one conversation through multiple series of the playoffs, this is a really good basketball team that is shocking a lot of people, and them being a play-in seed was a fluke and they can go all the way. But then when Denver does what Denver was supposed to do, because if you watch this Nuggets team, they weren't the number 1 seed in the West the entire year because they just happened to win games. They were a really good team the entire season. So when Denver did what Denver was supposed to do, all of a sudden it's, their path wasn't hard enough. They weren't battle tested. We're
selective in how we bring up that 8th seed. We pick and choose when we want to bring up that 8th seed. Yeah.
Absolutely. But we're gonna hear what Antoine says, and then we'll dive into that. Let's see what he has to say.
I think it's a one-hit wonder. I think it's
Yes. Talk, Twan.
I think it's a one-hit wonder. That's just my personal opinion. They have to continue to add pieces around. The Joker's playing at an unbelievable level, but you got to continue to add pieces around this team. The West is tough. Teams are going to continue to get better, and it's going to be hard to see if they can get back there again, because now you're maxing out your top 4 or 5 guys. So how are you going to continue to build the bench around them and put pieces around them? That's to be the key for their success moving forward.
I feel like this is a team that reminds me a lot of the San Antonio Spurs in terms of the era of Ginobili, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker. And I think that when that's your fundamental, it's hard to kind of count against that and say it's a one and done situation. I agree with Twan, though. I do think they're going to need to build around Jokic. They're going to need additional pieces. But I think that if you can keep Gordon, Murray, Jokic, those 3 guys together, and you can build around them and move those pieces accordingly, I don't know. I feel like this team can do it again.
Yeah, this is it's an interesting situation. It's an interesting situation because you've got a team that I talked about this with you last time that we were here, and we said that this isn't one of those superstars hopping to this team trying to win a ring in Denver, right? This is a small market team that is now finally getting eyeballs on them because, people didn't even know Denver Nuggets fans existed. Hi, hello, I'm here. We have existed. We just haven't had much to talk about, okay? We've kept our mouths shut for a minute. But to me, this is a team that is doing things in a very different way. This isn't a superstar hopping here, there, wherever. They don't have much drama. You know, they've been called boring all season long. They show up and they do their job. And to Antoine mentioning how dangerous the West is, I agree, but they didn't look too dangerous when they were playing the Denver Nuggets. That's for sure.
No, absolutely. And I mean, look, the West is going to make adjustments. The Lakers are not going to look like the Lakers this season. You know, we don't know what's happening with John Morant and the Grizzlies. We'll dive into that a little bit later with Vince. I mean, I think Phoenix is going to figure it out if they can either restructure Chris Paul's deal and add more pieces, or if Chris Paul leaves, they can add more pieces. I think a healthy Kevin Durant, Devin Booker combo is going to be a lot more dangerous. But I just don't understand how we can watch the type of basketball the Denver Nuggets have played the entire season, watch what they did in the playoffs, watch what they did in the finals, and say this is a one and done situation. And I know people will bring up the Milwaukee Bucks and say, well, the people thought the Bucks were going to be a dynasty. And the Bucks were an unfortunate situation because they were affected by injuries at the worst possible time, whether it was Chris Middleton, whether it was Giannis, whether it was Drew Holiday. So the Bucks possibly could have been that next dynasty if help. That's why I say, or Phil Jackson says, it's 50% luck. A lot of things have to go right. If you can keep the core together and health permitted, and I agree, they're going to need more pieces. You're not going to be able to keep a lot of those other guys, you know, the et ceteras on this Denver Nuggets team. You have to get better. You have to be able to compete. But I mean, this is a core that they're a dangerous core. Jokic is the best player on the planet. I think you can say that now. Like, people were like, you know, arguing that, oh, it's Giannis, it's LeBron, it's KD. It's Jokic right now. Like, let's just call a spade. Let's stop arguing this. Let's get over this whole, oh, he's a foreigner, he's not even American, he's boring, he rides horses. He's the best player in the NBA. Like, can we all just agree on that? Like, can we move past this argument?
Absolutely. I am ready for that argument to be dead. I am ready to bury it because all season long it has been Jokic is great, but he hasn't won a ring, but he's never, you know, made it to the finals, but he's never won a championship. The but is dead. Okay. He's now done that. So there are no more buts. All right. And if your but is he's only done it one time, where do you expect him to start? LeBron had to start somewhere. Okay, this is not something that you can't have a dynasty overnight. This is something that's being built, and I think it's being built right before our eyes with Jokic at the center of it all. No pun intended.
Yeah, and I think people are taking this word dynasty and like, oh my God, dynasty, that's the Warriors, that's the Celtics. How dare you? We're not saying that Denver is a dynasty right now. We're saying that this is possibly the next dynasty because based on what you saw, and again, for people who just started watching Denver, they've been playing like this all season. So this is not a team that caught fire in the playoffs and you can say, oh, it was luck. It was the bubble championship. It was this. They were playing, they consistently played, even when they played at their worst, they still played really good basketball, fundamental basketball, which is why I think a lot of people will refer to it as boring. I remember they said the same thing about the San Antonio Spurs. You're not going to see a lot of dunks. You're not going to see a lot of flash. You're not going to see a lot of glamour. You're just going to see the fundamentals, the X's and the O's. You're going to see a team really go through every possession, every single movement possible. And down the stretch, they're going to get the job done. It's not going to be exciting. It's not going to be sexy, but it's going to be efficient. And at the end of the day, efficiency wins championships. I don't care how many dunks you do in a game. Dunks don't win you chips. Efficiency does. And I feel like
Yeah. And the problem is you mentioned glamour, flashy, entertaining. There's a really great show called Keeping Up with the Kardashians, if that's what you're looking for. But this is the NBA. OK, so I'm ready to watch some basketball. And here's where the problem lies. We have this conversation. I know we're going to get to him a little bit more down the road in this show. But Ja Morant, he's an entertainer. But look at where that's going. That's now we're teetering a line of, okay, this is still your job. You still have expectations to meet. There still needs to be some structure and some discipline. So there needs to be a middle ground where if you're watching the NBA for the entertainment aspect of it, I'm not sure you're watching the right thing. Maybe turn on Bravo. But here in the NBA, like, I'm okay with you being boring if it means you're playing some really great basketball. And I think that's what the Denver Nuggets are.
Absolutely. And listen, if you want entertainment, you have it because we are not done yet. We're going to come back. We're going to talk some NFL and later on the show, we'll circle back, talk more NBA with Vince Goodwill. So make sure you, grab a snack and come on back, I guess. I don't know. Whatever you guys like to eat. Something like that. Maybe some nuggets. That's
right. Chicken nuggets.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.